All right, guys, sat here with Kieran. Now, if you don't already know, but I'm sure you must have seen in some of the other modules, Kieran is actually now the boss at Times Magazine, their marketing subsidiary. And some of the clients he deals with, LG, Unilever, you can go for it.
Unilever,
Yeah, LG.
Olympus, and those are all the ones on the kind of a large scale on a retainer basis. The ones we have to deal with for campaigns are ridiculous, and they go on and on and on, and most of them we can't say because we're on non-disclosures.
Okay. So guys, literally, like, we're not talking $1,000-$2,000 retainers here. We're talking like 50, 100,000 a month retainers, plus like double that in ad spend. So anyways, I thought I would bring him on here because he is, I would say, and from what I've seen, he's really, really good at, first of all, managing these high ticket clients, and just he's like a master, like socially a master at just like just like dealing with all these situations. And also, I mean, he signed Unilever like a few weeks ago. Like that's a huge client, and he actually managed to get them as a client, as you know, the boss and the sales guy. So any tips in terms of, first of all, selling to high ticket clients? Keep in mind, for them that'll be like $5,000 a month. Yeah. I call them whales. So like $5,000 a month or £5,000 a month, plus retainers.
Really, really big thing to remember is, and I think this is, you'll have covered this already, is you're moving away then from any sort of cold call scenario. You're moving away from the cheeky sell where you're looking to maximize profit. When you're looking at really high ticket clients like that, it is all about a relationship. At the very beginning of my career, I couldn't have even hoped to speak to somebody like that, let alone land them. The two things that kind of got me in that position, one was basic confidence from working in an environment where you've got to speak to those people, and the second one is building relationships. And that's something that's so easy to forget when you're working for an agency, because ultimately speaking, agencies are expensive. And if a company is intelligent, they know that they can take it in-house and do it for a fraction of the cost. If you're an agency, your job is to make somebody's life easy. And your job is to build a relationship with somebody so that they know they can trust you. And bearing in mind, a lot of the businesses that you'll be going for may even be owned by an individual, and they've got their personal stamp on a company. So to them, you're not only eating into their profits, you're actually representing their company. So they need to know that they can trust you 100%. So when you're speaking to them for the first time, you don't even think of selling to them. All you're doing is building up a relationship to them. You're actually investing time in them. A lot of this isn't horrible sales tricks. It's how to be a decent human being. You must have recommended How to Win Friends and Influence People.
I haven't, but...
Well, there's the recommendation. That is absolutely key to building any sort of relationship. You really do need to invest time in somebody. The clients that I'm closest to, I consider some of my actual best friends, and that's not even now a cynical perspective, me saying, and I can get them to do whatever I want. It's I've invested so much time in them, and we've become so close that they trust me, and I speak to them outside of work because we're that close. One of the really, really simple things is entertainment. Even if you've got a relatively small retainer, there's nothing to stop you whatsoever providing little things to let them know that you appreciate them. At Christmas, if you're in this relationship with somebody, are you sending them a Christmas card? On their birthday, do you remember it's their birthday? Are you sending them a message just to say that? If they're pregnant, whatever it is, you should always be there, and you should let them know that you're a friend. That sort of thing builds up a relationship. You can then go into the really, really horrible media world where you're getting them drunk, which is fantastic fun. It's expensive, but actually that kind of stuff where you're starting to get to know them on a very personal basis, that's the time where you're building up that relationship. That's the fun side of hunting down a client like that, where you're building up this relationship so that you get to trust them. When you are moving towards actually signing them and actually getting them to trust you, again, bearing in mind you're taking profit away from people, you're not throwing away, they're not throwing away £1,000 a month that they couldn't even hire an intern for. They're saying a considerable amount of our profit is going to go to you now. We need to see a return on investment for this, and we're taking a leap of faith. So we really need to know that you know what you're doing, and we really need to trust you. one of the most important things we do when we take on a big client like that is an immersion day. And that's where you go in and you give them all your secrets without giving them your secrets. So you say, by the way, we're going to be posting 3 times a day. By the way, we'll never run a competition for you, etc., etc., so that they start to know and actually put faith in what you're doing, that you really do know it. There's a lot of thought leadership as well. When you go into a room, you should know that they'll have read something that morning about social media. You should be the expert on that already, because when they ask you about it, you need to give them a really, really confident answer so that they think, actually, we're hiring this person for a reason. If 5 years ago they were managing the email marketing themselves, you should be knowing the differences between there and then. And you should be very politely being able to put them right and say, a lot's actually changed since then. You should relate to them, but you should say, here's how we do it now. And you need to portray yourself as the total expert and leave them in no doubt whatsoever that you know absolutely everything and you're worth every single penny that you're charging. So there's 2 really important things there. You're building up a relationship, and then you're giving them total faith that you're taking their money for a good reason because you're going to make them money.
So, I mean, very, very big nuance there. I talk about like my business model and how I have like the small little fish, which is like 1,000 to 3,000 a month, and I have whales. And guys, I'll be honest, like it's 2 very different games. Like I've given you guys the script and sort of like how you want to move the meeting along. That won't work with the biggest of the big. Like it just doesn't work, right? Like there's so much. The sales process takes a way longer and it's way less salesy, I found, right? With my biggest clients, it's been more of just like coffee conversations, and it's usually been like 4, 5, 6 meetings to get to that point, because first of all, there's a chain of command that they have to go through. There's changes that they probably have to make internally to even bring you on. But one really big point is it's really hard. It's really hard to fire your friend. So when you become their friend, it's really like you can pretty much fuck up and you pretty much got them hooked, because it's really hard to fire your friend. So like, for example, one of my old clients, Zebra Fuel, they were a $4,000 a month retainer. And look, I would bring green juice, and this is like some expensive, like this is $10 for like a 500 ml bottle, but I'd buy 10 bottles of green juice and bring it to their office, give it to some employees, and give it to all the CEOs. And like, yeah, it may have sent me back like, $100, but like stuff like that, they remember. I always pay for the dinners. I always pay for the coffees, right? So it's more like business owner to business owner rather than like I'm like their employee or something like that. And it's more like friend to friend, right? So it's little things like that like, I think it's a really important nuance. And as I said, like at first it'll be mainly business, but and look, I'm telling you, it's hard to fire your friend. So do you have anything else to add on that?
That I can only really build on that. The number of mistakes I've made where there's a client who I won't name out of courtesy, but the number of mistakes I've made with them, not catastrophic mistakes because I'm a professional, but stuff that's clearly an error, and they've actually gone out of their way to fix it for me. And they've said, no, like absolutely don't worry. Like, I tell you what, we'll do it today. And you go, hold on, you've just literally done my job. and it's amazing. And again, all you say, it's those little things. It's remembering the birthdays. It's remembering their favorite juice. Something I haven't said is that I don't know if you have this. Do you have a very basic list of likes and dislikes for your clients?
No, I probably should. I have the birthdays in like CRM
yeah.
stuff like that.
Something that when I first joined my company, the person who I work with had this little notebook by their phone, and every time they put the phone down, a little scribble would be made in it. And I asked them what it was eventually, because it was incredibly mysterious, and they said, every time I speak to them, I learn something about them and I write it down. So for every single one of your clients, you should know, are they married? What's their hobby? What do they get up to on the weekends? Do they have children? Next time you pick up the phone, you can then say, yeah, but did you watch the rugby? Because you know they like rugby. All those little things. Again, I don't even know if you've covered neurolinguistic programming in terms of speaking to people.
No, Do you want to touch on it, or is that big world?
It's not big at all. Really, really simple. You should know when you're speaking to somebody what type of language they use. If they're on the phone, the first time you ever speak to them, and they say, "You know what? This sounds like a really good deal. Yeah, this has got a really, really good sound to this. Whatever it is, you know that they use auditory language. If they keep saying this feels really right, just put right next to their name, are they using auditory, visual, or kinesthetic language? And the next time you speak to them, you know that all your phrases should use the same thing. That's so simple. That's building a rapport with somebody using a really simple hack. Sorry to intrude on that. That's probably another thing in itself.
I've heard that myself.
Yeah, sorry.
I've heard that. I've heard of that used before, and it's like, if they're like, oh, I need to think about it, or oh, this feels right, or like, oh, this sounds right, or like literally like what you said. But these are like the little nuances when you go to the higher tiers. Like, you got to start utilizing this stuff, and really it's as you said, like, with me personally, like, once they're my client, I try to get professionalism out of the way as quick as possible. I hate professionalism. Like, once they're my client, professionalism's out the way. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm still going to get them a return on investment, still do my job. But, like, once again, it's just really hard to fire your friends. So next sort of thing, and also, by the way, guys, you gain this authority once they're your client. Don't try this. Don't try that whole like build rapport shit. Oh, so how are the kids? Blah blah. Like, don't do that shit before they're your client. They see through it. It looks cheap, tacky. It's once they're your client, because it's very easy for you to give a shit when you're trying to get their business. But, like, do you still give a shit once you have their business, right? Like that, or even once you've lost their business, right? Because here's the big thing. First of all, it's way easier to maintain a client than find a new one, right? So, like, defense, I'd say, is more important than offense. That's number one. Number two, the amount of referrals you get when you're like that. For example, Zebra Fuel, they referred me on to 3 clients. And the combined total of those 3 clients, retainer wise, was $6,000-$7,000. Like, just because, like, I went through the motions, right? And I got professionalism out the way, and I just gave a shit, right? And it gets to a point where, like, that's like where things start to get easy, where you have so many good relationships and you've done so much good business that, like, just business comes hoarding to you. Next sort of thing I want to talk about is, you've kind of touched on it slightly, but, like, managing these higher ticket clients. Is there a way they like to be talked to, or is there a way, how often do they like to be talked to, or, like, in general, just not only selling to them, but just managing them, and like, we've kind of touched on, like, the whole it's hard to fire your friend, but, like, keeping that professional, going more along the professional side of things. Like, is there anything you've noticed?
Yeah, probably. So from the way that you're delivering your results to them, and something really simple like reporting, if it comes to the end of the month and you know they want a report, if you've noticed that whenever they send the report back to you, they've changed a figure, or they've or they've asked for something else, why are you still continuing to do it in your own way? You should be making life as easy for them as possible, even if you know that when you report on an ad that you've run, you know that cost per click is important. If they don't care about it, if all they want to know is impressions, don't burden them with unnecessary stuff. If they want something in an easy format, give it to them, become part of their system, and become part of their system that to the point where you're necessary, where they can't take you out of it. Get involved as much as you can in that business and move yourself into different areas and give a bit of extra value to them. If there's a side of their business that you're not retained for, offer advice on it and say, just so you know, from a professional perspective, I'd probably recommend doing that, because then you'll be considered for that ultimately to work on it, but also you're seen as like a wider consultant rather than just a dog's body for this little bit. You become part of their everyday. They will look to you for advice rather than just work output.
Yeah, and once again, guys, the sort of the thing to remember is these are the whales. Like, now, obviously, he's talking about, like, their minimum retainer at times is like 15,000, something like that, going all the way up to like 100K a month. In this sphere, we're talking like 4,000, 5,000 plus. If they're $1,000, $2,000 client, guys, just you gotta focus on scaling. You can't do this with every single person if they're not worth that much to you. But as I said, this is that sort of high level and high tier. And as I said, I thought there was no one better to bring on than Kieran, just because of the amount of clients that are on an astronomical level that he deals with. So yeah, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this module, and I'll see you in the next one.